Good day, everybody. And here's part two of Creeping Normality. And I want to talk about recognizing things early and keeping history in mind. With recognizing it early, that's easy. We've got to see the small shifts that are taking place. And we got to see it in the language, in the laws, and in the policies. They may seem minor, but they set precedents. And when they set precedents, that's it. It keeps going and snowballing. So we got to stay informed about changes to our laws. Loads of government websites that actually ask for consultation, and nobody participates on these consultations. And then the laws just roll in because nobody's really paying attention. We also got to look at local policies and make sure that they aren't creeping in a certain way that isn't going to affect our rights. So that's easy, the recognizing it early, but we don't do it. The other part is keeping history in mind. And that's looking back at like 5, 10, 20 years ago. What were things like with those rights and how they have eroded? Well, it may absolutely shock you into what has happened. The big one is protest and assembly. 20 years ago, that was a protected right. 10 years ago, it was really stable. And today, in the past 5 years, it has eroded rapidly through a lot of legislation that happened under the Tories in their last 5 years of rule or 4 years of rule. And we got to look at what's happening today because once that precedence is set, which it has, it's really hard to fight back. And all we got to look at is the trans and LGBTQ plus rights. Now, I don't care whether you agree with the lifestyles choices or not. The fact is, those rights were given. And 20 years ago, they were advancing steadily. And 10 years ago, they really progressed. The legalization of same sex marriage, so on and so forth. And now, today, especially with trans rights, but also LGBTQ rights, things are getting rolled back. And that is very, very dangerous. The Supreme Court came out with that ruling of what a man and a woman, what constitutes that, and that affected transgender rights. The rights were taken away. Now, if it could happen to one group of people, precedence is set. Why can't it happen to another? And then when it finally walks onto our front door, we'll care. And they have rights, and they had rights. It got taken away. Okay, workers' rights. Now this is interesting. 20 years ago, it was very weak, but it was present. And 10 years ago, there was even a slight decline under Tory rule of workers' rights. And then 5 years ago, still under Tory rule, it was curtailed incredibly so. But now with the Labor government, it's beginning restoration of these rights, and they're coming up with a workers' bill of rights and things like that. So that's all positive. And then we have the freedom of expression and privacy rights. We had strong protections on these 20 years ago. 10 years ago, increased surveillance. We are a surveillance state, whether we like it or not. It has its goods and its bads with it. But now it is really cracking under new legislation. New legislation that is meant to protect ends up taking away rights as well. And this is the small little drip, drip, drip that's going to make a difference in the end because precedents will be set and it can continue. Okay, we got the Human Rights Act, sometimes referred to as HRA. It had a really strong foundation 20 years ago. The UK helped write that, insisted that it would be put into, EU common law. And then there was Reformation discussions underway 10 years ago under the Tory rule. And we all know that, it was, let's pull out of the human rights thing. And it is still continuing where we are under political threat. And that needs to be resisted because once those rights are taken away, They're gone. Precedence is set. Okay, this stuff we're going to get rid of the whole Human Rights Act and then bring in something else. And that something else is going to be less than what we have. Precedent set, it can continue. And then all of a sudden in 20 years, it's going to be totally unrecognizable from what we have today. So I've shown how sometimes from 20 years ago, we have progressed, but we're under threat with a drip, 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 okay, with creeping normality. But then other times, we actually improved. And that's what we have to watch. We have to watch that there isn't the drip, drip, drip of creeping normality. It sets precedents, and then we're dead in the water. I will come back with part 3 tomorrow, and we will be talking about protecting civic awareness and building accountability. I'll see you then. Take care now. Goodbye.